Georgetown has been recorded. If you break down the Georgetown-Villanova rivalry by numbers, Villanova was founded 1842. Georgetown was founded 1789. If you break down the Big East numbers, Hoyas have 909 wins, 457 losses. Villanova is 905 with 452 losses. Villanova has 14 regular season championships. Georgetown has 11. Georgetown has 8 conference tournament championships. Villanova has 7. Both teams been to the NCAA. Villanova's been 28 times. Georgetown's been 27 times. The similarities are eerily strong. So that 1985 game is like cataclysmic in terms of it speaks to the tradition of both institutions, and it speaks to the rivalry. So I just wanted to throw, Final Fours, Hoyas 5, Villanova 6, national championships, Villanova 3, Georgetown 1. So that's kind of the framework for this conversation.
I thought you had purposely were going to omit that part at the end there, Jim. I'm glad you added it, my brother.
Hey, wait. Not going to do that, Dwayne. Not going to do that.
Just checking.
Too much respect. Too much respect. So with that, I'd like to launch into some conversational questions. And Markhum, I am going to give you the mic to kind of start to launch into that.
All right, well, let's go here. So 85 was obviously a special year for you guys. All of it. But it was also an amazing year for the Big East because out of the 4 Final Four teams, 3 of them were the Big East. The 4th one, shout out to my homeboys, was Memphis State. I'm from Memphis. And so I got double bones to pick with you two guys. But besides winning it all, what would you say was your biggest memory about the Final Four? Any of you? Ed, Dwayne, feel free to jump in.
Yeah, my biggest take from that was the conference itself. You said 85 was pretty big, but 84 was probably bigger for the conference with Georgetown winning it all. I think being a new conference, that put us on the map. And my best thing about 85 was we had 3 Big East teams in the Final Four. You know, ourselves, Villanova, Georgetown, and of course your Memphis State. So by having 3 teams from one conference in a relatively new league get to the Final Four, I think that was the biggest accomplishment of all.
Yeah, what about you?
No, I mean, I'd have to agree with that. The conference overall, you know, you talked about obviously our 2 schools, but you know, there were many other schools that kind of dominated during that era of the Big East. You know, we had a unique situation in the Big East in that we got great coverage. We had, you know, Madison Square Garden as our backdrop to play our conference tournament in. And, you know, obviously Georgetown, Villanova, Boston College, Syracuse with the Dome. I think, you know, Big Monday and all the televised games on Big Monday. You know, it all was a great time for the conference. You know, well-named coaches who were very competitive, as well as the players. I mean, it was just a good time overall. I think, you know, not only 85 and 84, but, you know, just that whole spread of time, the 4 years that we were all in school, everybody being an upperclassman. I mean, you don't get that now. I mean, typically great players leave after their 1st or 2nd year. But, you know, when you have a group of great players, great coaches, really tough teams, you know, all competing against each other, you know, week in and week out. I mean, it makes for some great basketball. Yeah, I mean, you guys were ranked #1 throughout that 4 years. How often? I mean, it was almost every year. You know, you were the #1 team. You guys had a bullseye on your back, and everyone used you guys as a measuring stick to play against. And you know, we all, I mean, I can remember being in the dorms with Dwayne, with Gary, with our whole group, watching you guys play and just destroying the competition. It was, it was a lot of fun.
Well, since you say that, I'm just curious. Since you say you guys, you remember watching Georgetown on TV. When I was there, Big John would say, don't forget, fellas, the name on your jersey, that's worth 5 points right there. Coming out the locker room. Like, was there any element of like Georgetown is the Goliath for you guys, or it was like, I'm from New York, let's get it?
I'm going to interject. No, Villanova, you don't have to answer that. We're going to leave that one. We're going to discard that one. We're going to discard, because all I can tell you is, in preparing for this show, which was very easy, I just went through clips, and I now understand why Dwayne McClain was called D-Train. I didn't know, because you're 6'6", 190, 200. When you think of a train, you think of a locomotive, right? But watching you dunk repeatedly on people, I get it now. So I don't, look, great teams and great players bring out the best in each other. And what I'd like for each of us to share, if we could, is a Georgetown Villanova moment on the individual tip. And I'm going to start because I'm the least celebrated on this call, including Markhum, who's 3-time player manager of the year at Georgetown. I just want to say that. And I'm giving a shout out to a Villanova manager, Vincent DeCenzo.
Yes.
I'm giving a shout out because that was your lead manager at that time.
Right.
From an individual standpoint, for me, Villanova resonates so much because my freshman year, we all had that standout game, which kind of propels you into the league is going to start talking about you now. My game came against Villanova. Stuart Granger was your point guard, senior point guard. And for whatever reason, I played out of my mind against them, right? And that, the next day in the Washington Post, Gene Smith, Hoya star on the rise. So Villanova has an indelible mark for me in terms of propelling my career on any level. So if each of you could kind of share a moment, and Billy, you haven't said anything with the Mohawk, so we're going to let you jump in here. if you could share a Villanova, Georgetown.
I don't know where to begin. Playing against Dwayne and Ed, it goes back to 5-star,
Right.
back to high school. We met early on and competed. And then, to see each other, 2-3 times a year over 4 years. Wow. It was, you guys talked about how people don't hang around much, but we all kind of grew up together and competed all 4 years. It was fantastic. It was fantastic.
No individual moment. No.
Well, I don't have an individual moment. I do remember once playing against them and going in for a dunk and missing it, and John screaming at me at half court saying that was the dumbest thing he ever seen in his life. Everybody could hear it in the statement. I felt like crap, And then the next play, I got another play, and I got another dunk, and I remember that only because he embarrassed me. But yeah.
Dwayne?
I remember some moments from some games, for example, in the final in '85, when we had taken a 1-point lead, and we were going to our spread offense, and I threw a pass to Horace Broadnax, and it hit him on the ankle. It was a terrible pass, and the whole complexion of the game changed. It was over at that point because they had been controlling the tempo the whole game. But the thing that stands out to me is how well, all their big guys played. Ed played well. Dwayne had a dunk in that game that, where he just hung on the rim and shook it like he was mad at it. And,
that was the D train. That was the D train.
Presley, came up with some stuff, underneath the basket that, but that's what they did. I always felt like when I played against Harold, I was playing against myself, only, he was a little bit more polished around the basket. We're about the same size, same build. And, so that was always a challenge for me. That was one of my toughest challenges throughout the Big East for whatever reason, was playing against Harold. Yeah. And, Dwayne used to hand it to David too, every chance he got to. It was fun watching it. We were just so evenly matched. It was just a wonderful rivalry.
I have a question because, Massimino did a great job of preparing us to play against, most of the Big East. He used to always say, like, the measuring stick was, obviously you guys, St. John's, Seton Hall at the time was very competitive, obviously Syracuse. But you guys had to know your defense. I talk about your defense all the time because it's often asked, how we performed so well against your defense. And we, at the time, we were just hoping that to be in the game. But can you guys talk about like your day in, day out practices and how you formed your defense? Because in talking with Dwayne, talking to Gary, we would always be like, man, if we can just get the ball over half court. And Gene, you were a major problem for that. I got to tell you, I mean, your defense, Billy, your defense, it was ridiculous. And then at the end of it, after you got the ball over half court, Patrick was in the back. I mean, it was ridiculous, man. So I just like, to give people perspective on how you guys practice in, day in and day out, and then would go into the games. I would really be interested to know how that went.
He's masterful. That was masterful. Billy, I'm gonna let you take that. That was masterful, Ed.
Well, it was simple, Gene. I mean, John emphasized defense, but the thing was we had players, we go 9 or 10 deep. And if you wanted to play, you had to compete. A lot of times our practices were tougher than the games. The games were like a relief force. I mean, it was all about defense. I mean, we'd have practices where, it was just defense, full court pressure, man to man, just defense. That was our thing. It was because we had Pat back there in the back that we had so much freedom out front where we could get up on people. If you got beat, you knew somebody was coming to help. But yeah, it was all about just being aggressive and just, playing as hard as we could every day, every minute, every game. I mean, that's what we do. And, as we got a reputation for it, we kind of, that kind of boasted, our confidence and what we were trying to do. And, it was just our thing. It was day in and day out. It was defense. And it was drilled into our heads.
Dwayne, one thing I would add to that, what you said, Billy, and to help you out a little bit there, he said it was drilled in to everybody. But that wasn't, I've heard from Georgetown players from that era, like who got to the league, how easy NBA practice was. And that was because our practices were a minimum of 3 hours. If you got it right, you'd be done in 3 hours. If you piss the big fella off, it could be a long night.
Dwayne, do you remember in preparing for them, we used to practice against 7 players?
Yeah, coach will put 7 defenders on the court because that's what it was like. We're funneling everything to Patrick in the middle. I mean, I grew up playing against Patrick. We played AAU together. We're both from Massachusetts. So me and Patrick have been competing against each other since we were 12, 13, 14 years old, And to see him in the middle anchor that defense, I mean, Hoya paranoia, that went national. That was all over the country. College basketball knew Hoya paranoia. They knew whenever they're going to play Georgetown, they knew exactly what was going to happen. It was no surprise. For us to prepare for you guys having 7 defenders, that's how active you guys were. You had great wings, great athletes on the wings. Point guard's position were locked down. Gene, you were a dog, man. I still hate you to this day, by the way, brother. The way you embarrassing people, it's comical to watch. It's comical to watch. And just the defensive pressure you guys applied, it was almost funny. Like Ed said, we would watch you guys on TV and just almost laugh because we knew whenever you were playing non-Big East teams, they had no idea what they were in for. They had no idea. So, I mean, that's why I said 84 was extremely important because you guys put the whole Big East on the map by winning it all. And then we just came 85 behind you. You know, Syracuse had a great run after that. St. John. It was just ridiculous talent from the coaching standpoint, from the player standpoint. But you guys set the precedent with your defense. When the Hoya paranoia, and forget the Raiders, you guys were black and silver. It was crazy. I mean, and it went national, and we loved it. We loved it because as competitors, we knew we had to bring our A game. If not, we're gonna get smashed. We knew that. So you guys lifted the level of everyone in the conference whenever we played you. Like Ed said earlier, being so dominant for 4 years, you guys went to three championship games in 4 years. That's unheard of. That's unheard of, you know? And with Patrick in the middle, angry and everything, Hoya paranoia, you guys set the president for the conference, man.
Man, that's huge respect, fellas. Huge respect.
That's nice.
What I want to add to this is the way you two just spoke about Georgetown is when I see Villanova over the past decade, you've been the beast in the Big East. And you know, I feel that same amount of pride. And it's almost like you're the beast of the East right now, Villanova. In my book, Jay Wright's that dude, right? And your program is that program. So we have the same amount of respect for the Villanova program, and it's just huge hearing that. And I just want to say to Ed personally, I heard you on Big East for a Recored, that deal. I think it was on HBO, and you spoke about what you just mentioned, and I just thought it was huge. Again, coming from your elite, your most elite competitor, to kind of, you know, give you that type of respect. But I just want to say Villanova has taken that to the next level currently. I think we're getting back on the scene now. We got the big fella, you know, at the helm now. And I guess, Ed, you're currently coaching in the NBA, assistant coach. Were you surprised to see Patrick go back?
Well, no, because, you know, during his stops in Houston, Orlando, we both kind of were coaching at the same time. He got an earlier start than I did because I started broadcasting when I finished in the NBA. And he immediately, after some time off, went into coaching. So we would always compare notes. You know, at the time he was working with, you know, bigs, Yao Ming, and other bigs in the NBA. And at the time when I got back into the NBA, I had Joakim Noah and Carlos Boozer. So we would compare notes and talk about, you know, best used practices for bigs at that time. So I wasn't surprised. I mean, he did his due diligence, worked really hard for a player of his stature, a Hall of Fame player, to, you know, put in all the work that he has over the course of time. I'm not surprised at his success. And I was just texting with him the other day. He has a few of the players here in Las Vegas playing well. His one center, Yurtseven, is playing great for the Miami Heat right now. And I can just remember just the other day texting him because Yurtseven, I think, is averaging like 25 points per game in the summer league. So he's getting now to the point where he's putting players who are functional to play in the NBA. And, you know, we've got the chance to interview some of those guys, and they all talk about his knowledge, his ability to give them best used practices from college to the NBA. So I'm not surprised at all because he's a worker. He has been all his life. I just, you know, in competing against him, it was never fun. Again, Gary and Dwayne had earlier meetups with Patrick, but man, when I had to prepare against him, it was like, gotta get a good night's rest, you know, gotta watch extra. I mean, like, he was just an absolute beast, man, and I just had so much respect for him as a player.
So I'd like to just mention that Billy, Dwayne, and I have something in common other than the Big East and Georgetown Villanova, is that we were all drafted by the Indiana Pacers.
Okay.
Obviously, in Markham, I was much later.
Well, hold on. Since you go there, you said you guys all have something in common. Now I feel like the Sesame Street guy. One of these things does not belong here because you also all have national championship rings.
Okay.
Which,
There you go.
which I didn't make that part either. But speaking of the national championship, Villanova, are we in agreement that that is the biggest upset in the history of the NCAA tournament in terms of a championship game? Or would you go with
I'm gonna go on
NC
mute.
State?
I'm gonna go on mute.
Yeah, like I mean,
I think,
because
like,
of what you said, Ed, like the Georgetown was Hoya paranoia and the beast of the East and all of those things. 85, would you say that's the biggest upset?
Well, I mean, we were an 8th seed, and the 8th seed is, I guess, the lower seed, so to speak, to ever win it. No, in that respect, you could say that. But I mean, if people were familiar with the Big East at the time, the national media, I don't think, was as familiar with us as they were Georgetown because of dominance that Georgetown had, being defending national champs, returning with the squad they returned with. That was enough to scare anybody in college basketball. So in tournament level, we had played Georgetown twice that season, pretty tough. When we lost to them in DC with 3 minutes to go, we were up and we lost the game. And then when they beat us in Philadelphia, they beat us in overtime. So both games were very competitive. And, again, we had that mutual respect. So for probably the outside looking in, you would probably say, seeing that we were an 8th seed and won the national championship. But I don't know. I look at the NC State game, 2 years before that, when they beat Houston. I thought that was a pretty big upset.
So, with that game playing out you guys shot phenomenally. Like it was insane. Y'all got buckets after buckets after buckets, and it was against great defense. You guys could not miss. Here's a question for you, Billy. If we were to go back and replay that game, it's a two-parter. One, what would you do differently? And two, how much would Georgetown beat Villanova by?
I wish I had the answer to that question. I'd like to see us replay that game. Get us old guys out there. It's on a weekend or something. But I don't know that we could do anything different. I thought overall our team played well. They just played better. And I don't know. I don't know that I would have done a whole lot differently. Maybe not hit Horace in the ankles with the ball, in the four corner offense. But other than that, I thought we played, fairly well. I mean, there was some mistakes we made that, but that's, that happens in hoops. They just played a great game. And I think when we talk about, how nationally people looked at us, they didn't look at us that way. They played us 2 or 3 times every year. There was no intimidation. There was no extra 5 points because of the G on our chest. It was purely competition because they were familiar with us, not only as players, but as a team, because they had played against us so much. So when we got to that game, I know if the roles were reversed, I'd have felt pretty good going into that game as a player from Villanova, just because of how competitive the games were that year. Dwayne just talked about it. And so, while it was upsetting, it was not all that shocking because, that's how the games were played. It's just at that time they were better on that day. It was terrific.
Well, let me since you mentioned the familiarity, do you think it would have been an easier game for you? I'm pulling my Memphis card out now. If Memphis had won the game, but let's let everybody remember. Dwayne, you said Georgetown played in 3 national championship games in 4 years when Patrick was there. The 1 year that they didn't get there, the boys from Memphis beat kept them out of the Final Four.
That's true.
So do you think it would have been easier against Memphis instead of Villanova, Billy?
Possibly. We did better against teams. Again, Dwayne talked about it earlier. If you didn't play against our defense and that kind of pressure on a regular basis, it's shocking. It's like, whoa. And so, yeah, maybe we'd have caught him off guard. I don't know. But it may have been. It's tough to say.
Now, I'll speak on that, Billy. I'll say Georgetown wins that by 25.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And this is no disrespect to Memphis.
No disrespect to
Because they
Memphis.
were very good. And I agree with Dwayne.
I will tell you right now, I am looking forward to we're gonna do a 1985 show, and Dwayne McClain, you are representing Villanova 100%. You are coming back. We're gonna have Andre Turner or Bobby, somebody. We're probably gonna try to get the little general on here. We're gonna have that discussion.
Hey, little general was one of my teammates in the CBA, Billy. You know that.
Yeah.
Together.
Yeah.
So got a lot of respect for the general, But again, I stand by what I say. Anybody outside the conference, dude, now in a national championship setup against Georgetown, I don't give them a shot.
I agree. I agree with that. I mean, there are a couple of iconic games that you guys played that we all would get together in the dorms and watch. Your game against Virginia, Ralph Sampson, pick any game in the Carrier Dome. A full a football arena completely sold out, you guys being highlighted. I mean, it's just people have no idea, 20, 30 years later, still talk about the idea of the Big East and what it meant for TV and ESPN and the start of all of that. You guys were one of the main reasons why, the networks, featured you guys on Big Monday all the time. I mean, this is just a great basketball team to watch and respect.
So Ed, you mentioned a sold out Carrier Dome. And one aspect of that is the wild, crazy fans and it being a very festive, competitive time. But when you said sold out, immediately I thought about the business of basketball. And I'm curious, you transitioned from a star college player to kind of a role player in the NBA, then you went back to coach at your alma mater, then got an NBA coaching, scouting. What would you say to young guys watching this about preparing themselves for basketball as a business, not just as I want to make it to the league and be on a team? There's lots of positions, and you mentioned you started out as an announcer. What can guys do to get themselves in some of those other lanes so basketball can be a long career as opposed to the brief window that you have an opportunity to play?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's competitive, right? So in order to get into any of these mediums, whether it's broadcasting, college coaching, NBA coaching, it's really competitive. So your preparation is what has to carry you along, So like while I was playing in the NBA, I was told very early on that the basketball is an important part, but not the only part of the game that you need to focus on. So as you said, I was a role player in the NBA. I had a couple of different stops with a couple of different teams. And I always made sure to try to meet as many people as I can in different mediums, whether it was broadcasting or coaching. And I would ask them about their jobs. What is it like? Do you like it? What are the elements that you need to prepare yourself to get into that side of the game? And I did that for 10 years, and it's helped me along the way in that people knew I had an interest. Sometimes the opportunities weren't there.
Oh,
Freeze on us?
Positions that, you know, you had enough knowledge to be able to get in and get lucky and get the job.
I'd like to hear the same question to both Dwayne and Billy, in particular because they were teammates for a minute, and then they both have had success overseas, particularly Dwayne in Australia, where there's probably a bus somewhere for you or a street named after you. But I'd like to hear how you guys transitioned after having such illustrious college careers and then getting your shot in the NBA. And maybe it didn't manifest the way you planned it, but you continued on throughout your journey. So I'd kind of like, if you can touch on that as well, that'd be cool.
Yeah, well, I mean, me and Billy were rookies together in Indiana. Yeah. That was a hell of a rookie year, huh, Billy? Yeah, we had a great time.
It was exciting to say the least.
I don't want to hear, we can talk about that later, but this is an R-rated show, but later.
No, but myself personally, I mean, I played professionally 12 years in 7 different countries, you know, and I finished my career in Australia. But I literally used, you know, basketball as my passport to see the world. And I spent, you know, a lot of time in Australia, but I mean, playing in Greece, where my teammate was Mitchell Wiggins, playing against Walter Berry over there, you know, playing in France. I mean, basketball is such a universal game. And now you see with the NBA, I mean, our dream team, I'm glad they won a gold medal, but they had some competitive matches against some of these other countries. It's because basketball has spread out so well. So having played in, you know, 7 different countries professionally, starting with, you know, my time with Billy in Indiana, that more or less being a marketing major, I always wanted to promote myself. So, and also when I got to Australia, I went through Reebok. They came out with a shoe called the D-Train, a line of apparel. So that worked in my favor. The education I got at Villanova, we flipped that further than basketball, you know. But having seen the world through the lens of a basketball player was a little different, but I wouldn't change it for anything in the world.
Joey?
Yeah, my experience was very similar. When I left the NBA, my first trip overseas, I went to Italy, and played on a team with one of my childhood idols, a guy named Bob McAdoo, and a guy named Mike D'Antoni was the point guard. They were the #1 team in Europe, and I got to play against Tony Kukoc when he was 17. Michael Ray Richardson was over there, Daryl Dawkins. I mean, it was a long list of players, and so for me, it was an experience. You know, learn to speak a little Italian, you know, and got to see parts of the world that, you know, I may never see again. And so it was an experience. From there, you know, Italy, Belgium, Switzerland, a little while in the Philippines, 3 years in Israel. Israel was by far the most fascinating place I've ever been on earth, just because of the history and because it was so different from what I had anticipated. You know, when I got there and I realized that, you know, not all Jews are white. That, you know, no, seriously, I mean, you know, I'll picture of a Jewish person, you know, as this guy with these, you know, and the hats and stuff. And, you know, when we see Israel, we see the Gaza and the West Bank and all these torn down buildings and people fighting. But when you land in Tel Aviv and you see the white sand beaches and the palm trees and everybody speaks English and, you know, the Mediterranean food, the diet, you know, just all shapes, colors, and sizes. I mean, they're, you know, Jews come from Morocco, from Africa, Yemen, Russia. I mean, it's just you talk about a melting pot of culture. Israel is it. You know, Jews come in all shapes, colors, and sizes, and loved it. You know, loved it. It was by far my favorite place to be, and that's where I ended my career.
You guys both just kind of touched on something that I think is very interesting. Villanova, obviously a great educational institution. Georgetown also. We all went to one of those schools. I tell people all the time, I've been fortunate the last few years to do a little bit of international travel. And I don't care if you went to Harvard undergrad, got a law degree from Yale, and an LLM from Stanford. I think the best education is international travel, especially because of the things that Billy just touched on. I mean, it's just, can you guys talk a little bit about your learning experience overseas?
Well, yeah, just seeing how people live in different cultures and some of the similarities we have with them is in itself an education. Like I was just saying to you about Israel, one of the things I found most fascinating there is that, you know, these people have been at war for hundreds of years. You know, everybody serves in the military, man, woman, and child. You know, they know that tomorrow's not promised. You know, you could walk down the street, somebody blow up a bomb, and you're dead, you know, and you're gone. And so while they're very serious people, at the end of the day, man, they go nuts. They have a great time. You wouldn't think that. You wouldn't think that because, you know, of their diet, but, you know, they eat the same food we eat. They drink, they smoke, they do everything. Mm-hmm. And it was just, you know, it was just so different from what I had anticipated. And then in other places, like when you go to Italy and, you know, they eat their big meal in the middle of the day, you know, which is probably healthier because you don't have all that food in you late at night. But just little stuff. And just learning to speak a few different languages and communicate with people in their own language. People really liked and respected that. And, you know, while I don't have a street named after me like Dwayne, I do have some little statues around it. Yeah.
That's good. Yeah, that says it all. But you're right, man. Just the cultures you learn. I mean, particularly going to Australia, you're in a foreign country where they still speak English, you know, and that was a little different. Playing in Greece at 12 o'clock every day, they shut down for a 2-hour siesta, you know, so it's a little different than what we're accustomed to. But learning those different cultures, experience different foods. I just love the experience of international travel. And my oldest son right now lives in Sydney, and I'm trying to get back there. They just shut down again. You know, they had 5 cases of COVID in Sydney, and they shut down a city of 5.7 million people. So that's how serious they take it over there. Yeah, they're doing a great job with it. But right now they're on lockdown. But I hope to get over there, if not this year, early next year.
With that, I'd like to express, you know, I hope all of your families and friends are doing well during this troubling time. So I definitely want to, you know, wish everybody the best. I do want some comedy though. And what was it like, Dwayne, for you and Billy to be on the same crew after playing together for so long and you guys realized your dream together? Ed's, even Ed's laughed. What was it, a competitive thing? Was it strictly brotherhood? And Dwayne, would you imagine then, at this point in time in his life, he would have a blonde mohawk?
Well, that one threw me off. But no, I mean, again, having competed against Billy, you know, since 80, 81, and becoming teammates with the Pacers. I mean, as rookies, Billy, I mean, we hung out quite a bit together. We spent a lot of time together.
Yeah, it was more of a brotherhood thing than a competitive thing. Yeah.
Most definitely. We were familiar with each other from the conference. And I guess there's a brotherhood within the Big East Conference itself. Like I said earlier, whenever Georgetown would play a non-Big East team, we would sit back and laugh because we knew they had no idea what they were up against. But being a familiar foe, being both from the Big East Conference, you know, with the Indiana Pacers, there was a comfort level there with Billy having them there. And it was. I tell you, I couldn't have had more of a fun rookie year. Of course, Wayman Tisdale was there as well with us.
Yeah. Oh my God! You did not just let Wayman Tisdale.
No, that was my guy, man. Wow. So yeah, we had a great time in Indiana, and then after that, me and Billy played together in the CBA up in La Crosse, and we won a national championship there with Flip Saunders. So yeah, a lot of basketball together, and again, one of my brothers. So whenever we had a chance to play together, it was a good thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, see, that had to be fun. When I got drafted, I got drafted along with a gentleman who's no longer with us, but his name was Nick Vanos, played at Santa Clara. He got injured early on in the season, so I was the lone rookie by myself. And I was always envious of guys who came in with other draft picks because, you know, you could bounce things off of each other. Like in training camp, you know, your first road trip together. You know, I can remember my first road trip was to Golden State, and I had to guard like Purvis Short, and Sleepy Floyd was a teammate of his. Exactly. So those two guys are just like, I mean, giving it to us. I mean, you know, and I'm watching Sleepy Floyd, and I'm like, I've seen this before. I've seen this before, but you know, you know, I wish at the time I had someone to kind of bounce things off of and stuff. As I mentioned, Nick Vanos got injured; he was kind of out of the picture our first year. But you know, that had to be a lot of fun to play together. Had that history from the Big East, and then go to camp together.
And I would be remiss if I didn't bring up your high school teammate. And the reason why I want to bring that up is because Billy was my high school teammate.
Okay.
And the fact that Billy came to Georgetown, first of all, the only reason I was at Georgetown was because of Billy. Big John wasn't coming to recruit me. He was coming to recruit Billy.
Right.
He just happened to see this Tasmanian devil diving in the stands, right? And, you know, with mismatched socks on or whatever. So what was it like playing with Fred in high school? And did you ever think about, obviously probably not with the Jamaican at Georgetown, but did you ever think about coming to Georgetown? And if not Georgetown, where would you have gone if not Nova? Yeah.
So it's interesting because if Fred Brown was a tremendous high school player. I mean, he got recruited by everyone throughout the country. He was highly sought after, big New York City point guard. And so everyone wanted him. And I can remember when he actually committed to Georgetown, his senior year was my junior year. My junior year, we won the city finals. And Coach Thompson spoke at our banquet, you know, to celebrate the city final win. Coach Thompson spoke at our banquet, and I can remember saying to myself, like, man, I you know, to play with Freddie again would be great. I'd have to wait a whole year, but not until my senior year started did I know, because I mean, we didn't have the rankings that we have currently now. We didn't know who was going where at the time. But when I heard Patrick was going to Georgetown, that totally eliminated everything, you know, my wants in terms of playing with Freddie again. But he was a lot of fun to play with because, you know, not was he only competitive on the court, he was competitive off the court. He was one of the top students in the school at the time. He played multiple sports. You know, he was big time, you know, in our neighborhood and at our school at Adlai Stevenson in the Bronx.
So, and since I have you, I just want to share Fred Brown's story with you, and you'll appreciate this. So, and Markhum, I think you've heard this story. Billy, I think you've heard it too, because I love telling it. Fred and I obviously came in at the same time, and I'm taking my first plane ride ever that summer because Big John was smart. This is pre-AAU, obviously. And we're traveling to where you are in Vegas to play just some pickup games. But at the same time, Big John is sliding us the playbook for the Hoyas. So, you know, we're some of our senior year, but we're going to be freshmen in September. So I'm on the plane, excited. I'm literally going through the playbook, and Fred, you know, walks up from behind me and said, "Yo, man, what you doing?" I said, "Man, I'm just checking out the playbook." He looks at me and says, "You ain't gonna need that. You ain't gonna never play." That's what we're doing. That's what we doing, Fred. Okay. That's my favorite Fred Brown story ever.
Wow.
What you doing? You ain't gonna never play, man. I said, "All right, Fred. Thanks for the motivation. Well, fellas.
Hold on. Two things I want to get in real quick. One,
You see why Markhum is here. This is why Markham's here.
I've heard that you were headed to Providence. I mean, I know enough not to believe everything I read, But I heard a pretty crazy story that you were going to Providence, and the Providence, it just sounds so crazy that it can't be true. I hope. That the Providence coach told you that you should go to Villanova. And I saw that and I was like, this has to be some nonsense. Can you speak about that?
No, it's very true. Like, I mean, Billy mentioned 5-star basketball camp, right? So 5-star was the first time I was around these two. And, you know, you got to add Gary McClain to the mix as well, too, because Gary and Dwayne made sure that Villanova was in my final choice of schools. The two of them were going there. I met them at 5-star. We all had a great time. But the best man in my wedding and one of my childhood friends, Wendell Walters, went to the University of Rhode Island. So I went to Providence on a visit, had a great visit, and, you know, wanted to go to Providence. Well, at the end of my visit, I'm sitting in Coach Walters' basement, and you know, I'm like, "Hey, Coach, I want to go to Providence." He's like, "Hey, before you make this commitment, I got something to tell you. I'm probably going to resign at the end of this year, and you know, I'm not going to be here if you're thinking about playing for me as a coach. And of your final schools that you like, I think Villanova is the place for you to go." So I listened to that. I had Gary and Dwayne there. Stu Granger was my homeboy from New York. So after hearing that from the coach from Providence, it was a done deal after that. I was going to Villanova.
Wow. I'm shocked, but
That wouldn't happen today. That wouldn't happen today.
You got to say, though, kudos for I can't imagine a coach telling the kid, "Hey, you should go over here because I'm not going to be here. I'm looking to make another move." Like that's pretty stand up. The other thing that must be dealt with for all the Georgetown people out here looking, 1985 was very upsetting for Georgetown people. And
I was at the game, by the way, fellas. I was at the game.
I have a story for you, by the way, when you finish.
Okay.
Because I get people from DC, I see them all the time. I saw two going into a 7-Eleven here that still hate me because of that game. So go ahead.
So I live in Los Angeles, and there was a gym out here. It was called a Sports Club LA. Now it's Equinox. Good, not great basketball there in the afternoons, pickup games. And in strolls Ed from Villanova. And everybody is like, "Oh my God, that's Ed Pinckney, NBA." You know, and Ed is 6'9". And to be clear, I'm every bit of 5'9". And nobody wants to guard him. I didn't develop a perimeter game until I tore my ACL. So this is pre-ACL. And in my mind, I'm going to deal with this guy. And we start off playing. I pick him up because everybody else is scared. And I drove to the basket and I got fouled. Let's be clear. It was a little more than foul. You always hear Charles Barkley saying when these little guys come down the lane, you got to touch them up. I got touched up by it. He was letting me know, don't do this. But I didn't call. Why? Because I'm from Memphis. You know, that's how we play through that type of stuff. And we go back down a few more plays up and down. And I foul Ed. But I foul him, it's like an ACC foul. You know, but I call, say, I stop play and I give him the ball. To his credit, he was offended. No, we're not doing that. It's your ball. We keep playing. And this is probably 2002, 2003. He is not NBA Ed Pinckney. He has put on a few pounds. And I ran him to death. I mean, I was just running. as hard as I could. We win the game, and I go up to him afterwards. I'm like, hey, man, you played for Villanova, right? He's like, yeah. So I went to Georgetown. That was for 85. And he was like, yo, something was, I knew something had to be up. But it's funny you mentioned Wayman Tisdale earlier, because the reason that I ran so much and stayed after getting touched up, I stayed on the perimeter, was because I had a similar experience with Wayman. And I went immediately to the block. And Wayman was like, no lie, 325, maybe 340. And I went down to the block. It's our ball. I am not lying to you. Wayman Tisdale said, hold up, before you check up, little fella. And he picked me up like a little thing of chapstick and put me behind the 3-point line. Like it was unbelievable. Everybody in the gym cracked up. He literally picked me up. I felt like a Barbie doll. And he put me behind the 3-point line. He said, young fella, this is where you belong. And because of the way he did that, I took, just like you listened to the Providence guy, I listened to Wayman Tisdale, and I stayed my ass out of that paint.
Yeah, he was a monster, man. God bless his soul. Great musician and stuff.
Rest in peace. Yes.
Yeah, but you're referring to stories about this game, and your legacy as a Georgetown alumnus. So I'm in the NBA. My son is a great Grant Hill fan. He loves Grant Hill. Wears his sneakers, has his jersey. He loves Grant Hill. That's his guy, right? So we're playing against the Detroit Pistons, and I'm going to get an autograph for my son from Grant Hill. So, during the game, you often stretch at half court or whatever. So I go up to Grant. I'm like, hey, man, can I get your autograph for my son after the game? And he looks at me like, and just like ignores what I said. I'm like, okay, so this is gamesmanship or whatever. He doesn't want to talk now. He's getting his mind ready for the game. So after the game, I go to their locker room and I'm like, hey, Grant, my son's a huge fan of yours. Can I get your autograph? I get the same look. I mean, the dude is like getting dressed, gets up and like walks past me. So I'm like walking to the locker. I'm like, what's going on here? He's like, listen, man, I've always hated you. I was in Coach Thompson's house when you guys beat Georgetown, and we cried. It was the worst moment, one of the worst moments of my life. So I've hated you forever, man. So I'm not giving you an autograph. So I go home empty-handed.
Wow.
With no signed sneaker.
Wow.
So I mean,
that's amazing.
Yeah.
That's
So
deep. That's
you
deep.
guys' legacy is unreal, man.
That's deep.
Hey, I might try to work on that for you. See if we can fix that up.
Oh, I'm gonna tell
all these years later.
I'm gonna tell that story again. That's crazy.
Yeah, no, that's true. That's true. And again, you go to DC or wherever you travel. I mean, there are Georgetown fans all over the world, man. I mean, you guys, the gray and blue sneakers, the jersey. I mean, you guys are part of the history of college basketball. I mean, embedded deep. And I always get this from people from DC. Man, you ruined my whole childhood. There's a writer that covers the Portland Trailblazers right now. He writes for The Athletic. I saw him in the gym the other day. He's a young cat from DC. He's like, man, I can't stand you, man. I covered Dame Lillard, but I remember that Georgetown game, man. Y'all were wrong for doing that. I'm just like, hey, man, that's a long time ago. I don't care. That was a memory from my childhood I can't get over, man. So, I mean, again, props to you guys always for just being great competitors and setting the table for all of us in college basketball, man. Because y'all were it. Billy, y'all were it. Really, I mean that, man.
Yeah.
Wow. We're coming up on an hour. I don't know where we go from there. But I like each of us to, if we can, say a parting word. I can't thank you guys enough for your time on a Sunday. And again, Dwayne and Ed, you guys were so easy to connect with and have this thing come to fruition. So my Villanova piece, what I want to share on Villanova is, again, I think you are the beast of the East right now. I think you guys are carrying that torch. I think what you guys established in the early 80s has evolved into this thing. Like I almost think of Villanova as like again, like passion, pride. Like clearly you guys are dominant, and I think it started with you two gentlemen and your whole crew. Again, I just want to give a shout out to Stuart Granger, your homeboy Ed, for putting me on the map. And I used all 5 fouls, by the way. I fouled out in 15 minutes. I just want, again, Villanova will always be near and dear to my heart. And I think Markham spoke to it. There's still Georgetown people like, you doing the show with who? And you doing it when? Like, so won't you just change the show name to Villanova Locker Room? I'm like, yo, pump your brakes. They family. You can't have one. To me, you can't have one without the other. And that's my piece on Villanova. I love you guys. And again, ultimate competitors, ultimate warriors. People slept on you in the 80s and they don't sleep on you now. That's my party. And each and one of you can do the same. I really appreciate it.
Well, I'll go after you, Gene. Again, and I mentioned it before. Tons of respect to you guys and bringing the best out of us. I think I've always had like a fascination with Coach Thompson. You guys had the ability to be around him on a daily basis. I'm starting to read more and more about his childhood, his history. He gave me some great words as a young coach while I was in college that I never forget. They were words to live by in terms of work ethic, what you had to do to be a success on and off the court. I always respected you. I played with Alonzo. So you guys have a great brotherhood that we try to emulate. We're all fairly close and stay together. And, hopefully the brotherhood can continue. I think it will, because we have so much in common. We have the 80s in common and playing for two great coaches and stuff. And, those are my parting shots. I hope the brotherhood continues, and it's just great to be on with you guys.
It's awesome. I'll go next. I just want to, I wanted to clear the air about some stuff, and Gene's heard this story, and I don't know if Dwayne's heard it. I'm sure Ed hasn't, but and I'm only bringing it up because I have my witness here with me. But there was the perfect upset where they started the program with the recording of me saying, "Oh man, these guys must have made a deal with the devil," and had me up there. And I did say that jokingly after the set was over and the cameras were down, and my then girlfriend is now here to testify that. But I wanted to apologize to you guys because I've had nothing but the highest amount of respect. Because I'm sure you guys saw that and was kind of shocked by it. In fact, I got a text, I can't remember who it came from. But I just want you guys to know I've had nothing but the highest amount of respect for you, your team, the organization, the coaches. And it's always been that way. Dwayne was such a good friend to me when I was in one of my darkest spots in my career and not knowing what I was going to do. It was Dwayne that called me. Dwayne called me and asked me if I wanted to come play with him in lacrosse. And it turned out to be the best decision I ever made. We won a championship there together, and it restarted my overseas career. I went overseas for another 4 or 5 years after that. I never got to thank him for that. I just want to say thank you to Dwayne and, for all these years. And, I really regret that, we haven't spoken. Hopefully down the road, we'll talk a little bit more because, again, that's my dude, D-Train's my man. And so yeah, man, you know, I'm glad we got to do this. I'm glad I finally got this off my chest, because my wife can attest to this. You know, anytime I sit and watch Villanova, I was like, man, you know, I cannot believe they did that to me on ESPN. They just put some stuff, you know, it's been going on for 20 years now. But anyway, guys, it's great seeing you guys.
Yeah. Hey,
Right.
with this this worldwide pandemic hitting all of us, I just hope everyone stays safe. Take care of your loved ones. And I think the important thing about this time is through Zoom, through these different means to see people face to face, it's important to pick up the phone every now and then and to check on someone. Like me and Billy haven't talked in ages. And when we pick up the phone, it's like we never missed a beat. And that's how true brotherhood is. That's how true friendship is, you know? So we're going through crazy times right now. Stay strong. I tell you, my heart and soul is with the Big East. I loved you guys from day one. And growing up, again, playing with Patrick set the tone. And you know what you're going to get whenever you see a Big East brother. Even talking to Ron Stewart, who went to St. John's, and, you know, a couple guys up in Syracuse to this day. These are my guys, you know. Yes, on the court, we battled, like you said, Gene, and we left it there. Off the court, friendships for life, man. That's what I appreciate most about it. So, yeah, let's definitely stay in touch.
So you guys have talked throughout the show about the brotherhood you guys had playing with each other. I just gotta say, it made me start to think about the brotherhood of the Big East. I mean, living out here in LA, funny one night, I was waiting in line to get in the club, and Leak Sealy, rest his soul, was there. He was like, "Yo, Georgetown, come on." He pulled me in to go with him. My first cheesesteak that I ever had in life, I got because of the Villanova manager. Had to do the laundry and he called him up, went over to the school, and we're sitting down. And by the way, we had just eaten. And he says to me, yeah, there's no way like we're sitting in here and watching clothes go around in a circle. Have you ever had a cheesesteak? And I said, yeah, I want them at the restaurant all the time. And he looked at me like I was insane. Like, what do you mean a restaurant? And he takes me over to Pat's and he says, trust me, just say cheese with. And after that day, I never ordered a cheesesteak in my life from a restaurant, because Philly cheesesteak from Pat's was insane. One thing I do want to, shout out I want to give out to your coach, Coach Massimino. You talk about the players being competitive. Coaches in the Big East all have major personalities and were extremely competitive themselves. And I'll just share this story with you. Because we were friendly, I was friendly with the Villanova managers. Every Thanksgiving, we would go to Hawaii, and we bought all of the first class tickets. Usually we would be flying coach like to the Big East games, and I would try, as the head manager, I would try to get Coach Thompson bumped up to first class just on a comp. Hey, we bought 16 tickets. Can we get 2 up in
Manager of the year, 3 years in a row.
So we're going to Hawaii, and who was coming with us? I look around, there's the Villanova team. And so I go up to John and I say, hey, do you want me to, because the Villanova managers were trying to do what I always did. They're trying to get Mass bumped up to first class. And I go up to John, I say, hey, do you want me to give my seat to Coach Mass so he can sit in first class? You would have thought that I was ready to start World War III. He said, oh, no, son. As a matter of fact, this is what you do. Go tell your Villanova manager, buddy, tell him Big Coach says, if you make the money, you can spend the money. And tell him to tell Mass that. So mad thanks to you guys for coming on, and really appreciate it. Ed, like I look at you as like the Patrick Ewing of Villanova. I mean, like you are the face of Villanova basketball. So very thankful to have you on here, and cannot wait for the 1985 Final Four show.
Want that
We'll see
show.
you again,
Want that
right,
show.
Clay.
So Ed and Dwayne, if you get a random text from me just saying hello, I'm not a stalker. But much appreciation, fellas.
I
Nothing
appreciate
but
it, man.
love. You guys
Thank
stay
you, guys.
safe, and we'll definitely be in touch. Big East
I
brother.
appreciate it.
All right.
Thank you.
Take care, guys.
All
All right,
right,
now.
bro. Take care, guys.
Later.